Brett Yormark just slammed the college football playoff and its officiating crews for not doing their job. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. That is Cameron Stewart co-hosting today. He hosts Locked On Baylor. The reason he's here is because he's moderately funny, and I am more handsome than him. We will talk Brett Yormark ripping into the college football ripping into the college football playoff over its officiating crews. Also, Mark Harlan, the Utah AD, went in front of a podium and a microphone and did not say that his school would no longer like to be in the Big 12. Instead, quasi-apologized. There was no I'm sorry, but he walked his comments back from November. And Big 12 basketball, it's kind of collapsing right now. We'll get there as well. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Cam, Brett Yormark, very unhappy with the officiating of the college football playoff, says that a new standard has to be set. All of this coming from a couple of weeks ago when Arizona State was blatantly screwed. Not just by the targeting call, but then come to find out, we watched the replay, and the game-winning touchdown, the receiver actively uses the turf to catch the football, taking a win away from Arizona State. In most cases, you're like, oh, well, the officiating crew doesn't decide a game. But here, when a kid pins a ball against the turf and that should have been incomplete,
literally the winning play,
Arizona State wins, Brett Yormark is on the money.
Yeah. And I think the SEC is starting to learn about not only their double standard, they don't know about that yet, but the double standard of UT within the SEC, which we'll get to that. But I mean, Yormark, the most biting comment on this, or part of this statement that he put out was, what did he say? He was like, we're looking for just a national level of what we're going to call in these college football playoff games, which is the diplomatic way of saying, hey, we need to make sure there's not different rules for the SEC teams than there is for our Big 12 teams. And they did kind of, the referees in that game got kind of a bone for a long time for a couple of weeks here, because we all remember the non-targeting call that should have been called. And then we come to see, oh yeah, the touchdown that literally decided the game shouldn't have counted either. It's par for the course, I would say, for a lot of us out there. But you think with the 12-team college football playoff that it is going to be easier for the little guy. And according to ESPN and Tessitore and anyone who had any involvement with this game, there's no littler guy than Arizona State with like the third highest enrollment in the country. Just plucky little Arizona State from that little farmers conference in the Big 12. The 12-team college football playoff was supposed to even the playing field for them, and we have yet to see it. And try as they might, still no SEC team in the national championship game.
Direct quote from Yormark: as a member of the College Football Playoff Management Committee, I have had multiple discussions seeking clarity surrounding the targeting call on Arizona State's final drive of the fourth quarter with Richard Clark. He's told Brett, this is per Brett McMurphy, moving forward, we need to address the CFP officiating to ensure national standards are developed. These standards will be crucial to the CFP's future, and I look forward to discussing them with my fellow committee members when we meet next. He didn't just go after this game. He said the entirety of the college football playoff committee needs to address the entirety of their officiating crew because it's not up to par. Imagine being the top tournament in America, in American collegiate sports, and still not being able to get the damn officials right.
He's like, I just want to talk this through. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. And to go off not just the biggest tournament in America, because it is, but arguably the biggest moneymaker in American sports right now is the 12-team college football playoff. The NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl are a different animal, I guess. But, I mean, really, the 12-team college football playoff challenges that. And so you're going to pour all this money into this, and you are going to spend months and months deciding who gets to get in there from a team standpoint. And we're not even going to be on the same page on what the rules are. Like, we're not even going to get the competent officials for this game. It sucks. And I think this is a buildup. I mean, as most Big 12 fans feel, right? I think this is a buildup from Yormark too of we went through this whole year of you guys talking about how our conference isn't good enough and how great the the Big Ten and the SEC are, and how this team with 2 more losses than our team should get in because of X, Y, and Z. And then you're going to pull this crap. Then we actually get out there on the field and we strap on the helmets, we strap them on, and we play a damn good game and should be taking Texas out. And this is what you're going to pull on us. Like it is a buildup of a lot of different things to where Brett Yormark of the Big 12 is just like, you know what? I'm sick of this. Nothing's going to change if I don't call them out anyway. So let's at least try this and see if something's going to change. I doubt it, but it feels like the Big 12 and I guess the ACC as well being treated as second-class citizens in when it comes to college football and specifically the college football playoff. It's BS, man.
Yeah, very so. You see it in the NFL with, remember that Saints pass interference? I mean, we've seen a couple times where a larger market team seems to benefit from a big call. There is bias in everything, whether you like it or not. It's going to be there. And do you think that the Big Ten officiating crew knew that this was mighty Texas of the SEC and the Power 2, the quasi Power 2, playing against a Big 12 team, and a Big 12 team winning does really nothing for them?
I think they had an idea. Specifically because the other side of the bracket was that Rose Bowl game, which a lot of people thought were the 2 best teams left, right? Ohio State and Oregon. And it was like, oof. Ohio State against Arizona State in the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, Texas. What can we do here? And this goes back to my point of there's not just a double standard for the SEC, but going within that, there's the double standard for Texas. And I think the SEC schools are going to start to figure that out. Remember, we'll take you back to October, the biggest game in the history of college football ever, Georgia versus UT in Austin. A pass interference call on an interception gets overturned because, the UT crowd threw bottles onto the field and Sark was big mad. And so that gets turned around. I'll give you a Big 12 example of it. This goes back a bit, back in my time, well before yours, Drake. 2018 was my senior year at Baylor, that football season. And Baylor, Jamison Williams had a pick in the end zone that was overturned. They said he used the ground. He did not. And so they take a pick off the board. Texas scores on the next play, and they win the game by 6 points. Like, this is the kind of margin that we're talking about. It's gone on forever. We've known about it forever in the Big 12. And you would think that maybe going to the SEC where they're not the biggest dog, it won't be there. But here it is. So not only is the country seeing the UT bias and the SEC bias, but these SEC schools are going to start to see the UT bias soon enough if they haven't already.
No doubt. And
they want Texas to be back. They really want Texas to be back.
And this is a losing effort. We can continue to tout the SEC with the stripes, with ESPN, with everybody that wants to make you feel like they're the best and no one else can compare. It's just not really trending in that direction. Trending in an apologetic direction, the Utah athletic director walks back his comments from 3 months ago. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. There is no better place during the NFL and college football postseason to place your bets than FanDuel. Right now, new customers who bet $5, get this. Right now, new customers who bet $5 get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, $200 in bonus bets. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Visit the website, FanDuel.com today, and you'll see that Ohio State's like an 8-point favorite. That's a lot of points. You can bet on Notre Dame as we speak, or go bet on the Philadelphia Eagles to beat whatever team they're playing in the playoffs. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Cameron Stewart of Locked On Baylor, Mark Harlan, the athletic director at Utah. Look, I think for all of us who have been in the original Big 12, to have heard what he said at that podium in November, it was gross. The guys, we saved your school. Nobody else wants you. And then you come to a podium and say, we were proud to be in the Big 12, but tonight we're not. That makes major headlines, and he's finally kind of walked it back. There still wasn't a sorry in there to any Big 12 fans. He said at the time, I've been an athletic director for 12 years. This game was absolutely stolen from us. Gives you his credential. Like I've been a janitor here for a long time.
I've seen a game. Seen a game or two.
Stolen from. We were excited about being in the Big 12 tonight. I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us, which is just a crazy thing to say. And then this week he says, I think as we kind of talk about last season, things didn't go the way.
Wouldn't quite understand her.
Now that I look back, he says, I reacted emotionally and my frustrations were expressed in a way that was not worthy of a true leader of a program of this stature. Very true. Mm-hmm. And certainly as any leader should, you learn and grow from those experiences. He didn't talk to anyone publicly for months after this. He damage controlled it. He said, we're going to go 0 dark 30. Nobody say anything. They'll forget about it. And releases that non-apology statement, which was even worse, like 2 days after.
Locked on Big 12 just kept on putting out videos. He's like, we got to do this. We got to do this.
They're never going to forget.
It's basketball season. They're still doing it. I got to do something.
Said he feels like he took away from the BYU players and from their victory. I guess he's going to admit that they won the game. And
after they took our players away through tampering, and he just rolls from there. It's great PR, man. I'm telling you, Mark Harlan, you can learn a thing or two from us.
Says that diminishing the membership in the Big 12 after the game, he doesn't want anyone to think that their participation is something they're not proud of. He thinks that they're honored to be competing. Again, this is where the PR director at the University of Utah says, shut up, don't say anything for months. We're going to let it just die down a little bit, come to a podium, don't say sorry, don't say I apologize, say that you talked to the commissioner, and everybody will forget about it. Is this just PR 101, or is this guy actually sorry?
I don't think he's sorry. No, I do not think he's sorry. No, this is PR 101. And it goes back to kind of how you preface that of like probably taking some time to reflect over the holidays, whatever holidays he's celebrating. Mark Harlan is, and thinking,
Kwanzaa.
We didn't have anywhere else to go. And, the Big 12 might not be number one, but they're certainly doing some pretty good things right now to keep the conference stable. And if they don't like us, this could be a bad deal. This could be not great for us, and probably goes out to whatever the name of their basketball arena is and sees whatever that is they decide to call men's basketball out there every night. And it's like, oh, maybe we should know our place in the Big 12. The 2-7 record in the conference in football wasn't good enough. We're like, oh, maybe we should know our place. It was ridiculous. And I actually compared it on my show once to what Mack Rhodes said about Big 12 basketball officials last year, and just the two different ways they went about it. Both were right after a game. Both didn't have time to, meet with their people and write out a press release. And basically, Mack Rhodes was saying, like, hey, this is the best basketball conference in America. Interesting segue that we'll talk about later. This is a great basketball conference. We're so much better than this. This tonight was an embarrassment. I'll be talking with the league. And he still gets a fine. But Mark Harlan goes out there and says, we're embarrassed to be here. I don't even want to be in this conference. And it's like, that's a different deal, brother. And again, with Utah, like their whole fan base thing was talking about how they're so much better than this conference the whole offseason. And then when they sucked, they revert to, Arizona State didn't have a lot of fans at the conference championship game. And like just acting so above this. And it's clearly a trickle down effect from the head honchos at Utah Athletics, who go on in their press release to brag about how good their volleyball team was this year. And it's like, maybe you don't deserve to be here. I thought Utah was a great fit in the Big 12, but maybe if this is going to be your attitude, maybe we just send you back to Winnipeg.
PR. It's a beautiful thing. I was a PR student.
You studied it. Yeah.
And this is what we
art
did.
Of it.
We said if you were too loud on the front end, just be quiet. Just let everybody forget. Let it simmer down a bit. From the perspective of someone who is an original Big 12 member, by the way, you can make the case that for TCU fans, for West Virginia fans, they've been here 15 years. They're Big 12 fan bases for sure. But
thankfully,
the Baylors, the Oklahoma States, the Iowa States, there are some programs that have been through hell and back a few times, losing schools, thinking the league would die, seeing the league diminish, seeing it come back, a roller coaster.
Wondering where you're going to go.
Right. Right. Baylor wants to go to the Pac-12, and then Cal and Stanford say no because Baylor has the religion thing. There's too much religion down there in Waco. A lot of religion in Waco. Some of it's there.
The greater Waco area, at least, for sure. Yeah.
This, to me, it's a slap in the face. It was a slap in the face at the time. And I was at the game. I saw the comments after the game, and I was just ticked. I just ticked that we go through all this for these guys to walk into our conference and say this, disrespect us this way. Are we talking about rogue Utah fans, rogue Utah comments, or is this the culture of the fan base now a year in?
I think from what we see from the outside, certainly from what I see, this seems to be closer to the culture than it is to being rogue. And I'll bring this up even though I don't like to, but this is what I mean by this. When I do a show with our friend JT Wistersill of Locked On Utah, who's one of the nicest people I've ever met and knows his stuff, like really knows his stuff and does a good Utah show every day. You see the comments on there of like, this guy's not Utah. This guy doesn't care about Utah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there are some people in the greater network that you can probably say that about. JT Wistersill's not one of them. And so it's like, that's where I think like, man, these guys are actually insane. This is what they want to be. And I think what it is they want to be the complete opposite of BYU. Like BYU is nice and level-headed and very passionate. And so Utah's like, let's not be nice or level-headed and be even crazier passionate. I'm sure I've seen some in the comment section too. There are some nice people out there that root for Utah that are more level-headed, but I think their culture and identity is trying to be, the exact opposite of BYU and be crazy out there and say, this is because they finally got that. They've had good success the last 2 decades, but finally those last couple of years in the Pac-12 of getting like that real taste of success of winning the Pac-12, beating the USCs of the world and the Washingtons and the UCLAs and the Arizonas and getting to Rose Bowl games, I think is big for feeding into that. But yeah, I think that's closer to what they are. I think there will be some Utah fans that are like, hey, we're not all like that. And I'm sure you're not all like that. But yes, that is closer to the culture than I think the rogue people.
I'm not sure if you can make fun of Utah Utes comment sections when even your comment section, I'm not sure if you've read those who comment on Locked On Baylor. Some saying that they wouldn't give Drake C. Toll, aka Troll, any attention and disown me as a Baylor alum. So I don't know.
I wouldn't know.
I feel like every locked On comment section has its own issues sometimes. Coming up, Big 12 basketball collapsing ? Baylor's a part of that. Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks, I make money, and all I have to do is kind of know some things about football. And guess what? I kind of know a couple of things about football, contrary to popular belief. This message is brought to you by PrizePicks, the place to get real money sports action. 10 million plus members and billions in winnings. PrizePicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Playoffs or regular season, PrizePicks is there for you. It's playoff time. No better time to get in on the action. Pick more or less on 2 players. And if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your cash by making a few simple picks. For me, all right, Lamar Jackson, more than 250 passing yards. Travis Kelce, more than 70 receiving yards. We'll see if Travis can deliver. Fun to predict, easy to play, and with a flex play, you can still double your money even if pick doesn't hit. And with the app, get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 for just playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with PrizePicks. PrizePicks, run your game. Cameron Stewart of Locked On Baylor. From BYU to Baylor to Cincinnati, Arizona, Texas Tech, Kansas State. God bless Kansas State. The Big 12 in basketball is kind of falling apart right now.
It's not in a good spot, or not in a great spot, I should say. There's been questions asked of whether the Big 12 is still the best basketball conference in America. And it feels like a down year right now. It really does. Baylor just lost again on Tuesday. They got really worked by Arizona. They made it close at the end, but they were down 23 in the second half of that game. They keep getting blown out by good teams. And the problem in Arizona will probably get back into the rankings after this, as they deserve to be. But that was a preseason top, 10, 15 team. Yeah. And the problem with the Big 12 this year is kind of that second tier, right? Because the top three are still pretty damn good. Iowa State, Kansas, Houston, still very good. But what's different from years past is that second tier was also very good, and they were getting 4 or 5 seeds in the NCAA tournament. And we're still kind of waiting for who's going to emerge in that second tier. But right now, it's probably Arizona. Baylor's fading after a couple of wins in a row. After that Arizona performance, Texas Tech has not hit their stride really yet. And you look at the SEC, which has a clear cut, kind of upper echelon, Auburn, Tennessee, and Alabama. And then that second tier is still pretty damn good with Florida and Kentucky. In fact, those two are better than anybody in the second tier of the Big 12 right now. Ken Palm still loves the Big 12, but it is, I don't want to say a crisis because it's a 1-year thing right now, but I think the SEC has passed the eye test more than the Big 12 has this year.
Yeah, Lenardi currently has 11 Big 10 teams, 11 SEC teams, 7 Big 12 teams in the NCAA postseason. And part of that is usually you'd see 10 Big 12 teams. We've now opened up the path for the SEC and the Big 10 to be much better at hoops. And along that, is this the worst we've seen the Big 12 in recent memory in basketball and the best we've seen the SEC?
It's the deepest we've seen the SEC in a while. Really, this year and last year are the best that we've seen them in quite a while, I would say.
And all it took was John Calipari going away.
Yes,
Kentucky.
yes. And by the way, he's in the SEC, and his team's not really factoring into this.
Their first 0-5 start in SEC play since 2009.
And there goes maybe Baylor's best win of the season before conference play. So, it's definitely the best the SEC has looked in a long time. And that goes back to even the early years of Calipari, because Kentucky was kind of a one-man band in that league for a while. And in terms of the Big 12, I'll give you one, which is going to sound really weird, but 2021 was not a great year for the Big 12, all told. Obviously, they had the national champion in Baylor, and they were the best team in basketball. Kansas was kind of down, although they were in the rankings the whole year. That's what a down Kansas team looks like. And you had some truly, truly bad teams at the bottom. Oklahoma State was starting to bottom out. Kansas State was terrible. Horrid, just absolutely. I mean, Baylor beat them by like 50 in one game. And so that middle ground wasn't like Tech was kind of on the down slope, but still pretty solid. That would have been Beard's last year, if I'm not mistaken. So it was just like the middle and back end were not as strong as they were the few years leading up to that, and then the few years after that. But that felt like kind of a one-off, and it helped that you had the national champion and had a team that was head and shoulders above everyone else in Baylor. So West Virginia was still pretty solid, but outside of that, you got to go back to like 2017, 2018, when I think us in the Big 12 were realizing that the Big 12 was probably up there with the best in the country, but the national media hadn't really recognized it yet. So that's back when you go back to I call it like the Big 12 banter era. You use that term a lot in soccer, but it was just like all they had was really tough teams with great home court advantages and not necessarily really good teams with great home court advantages, which they've had the last 5 or 6 years.
TCU, Baylor, BYU, I consider to be in that kind of middle pack of, all right, preseason can pretty much guarantee they'll be tournament teams. And now there's a question mark around both tournament and seeding. Baylor should make the tournament for sure. There's a scenario you lose 3 straight in the Big 12, which many do, where you're going, shoot, we're on the bubble now. And for BYU, same thing. You lose 3 straight. TCU, you lose 3 straight, and you're reeling at that point. Why? How those 3 schools that could have been so good this season? What I don't understand is, and we'll get to the Kansas States and Cincinnatis of the world, but why those 3? I'm not sure how that like you said, that middle pack has gotten so far behind.
Yeah, with TCU, I mean, you just got to wonder what their ceiling is in basketball. Like, I don't know if they ever get into that highest echelon with Jamie Dixon or with anyone else for that matter. It's just it's a tough turnaround. But then again, you would have said that about Baylor 15 years ago. Baylor, I'm still trying to figure out what's going wrong. It feels like just all the talent that, like, we just all collectively overhyped the talent. They're not getting anything offensively out of their guards right now. They don't have shot creators, shot makers, so they're a damn good offensive rebounding team, but they can't do anything with it. And they've been out muscled so much. And BYU, you think, Denham is the savior there, and they're not as good as they were under Pope last year, which was a team that went out in the first round of the tournament. So you're right. It's just a whole bunch of question marks around these that middle of the pack teams, those middle of the pack teams. I think the biggest thing that you can say about all of them, and what you couldn't say about most Big 12 teams for a long time now, is neither of those three teams are tough. None of them. Like, they don't have any balls, man. We haven't seen it yet. That's why I think Tech is still going to, kind of be at the top of that second rung, because Grant McCaslin coaches some tough MFers, man. And he's done that at every stop. And Scott Drew usually has tough teams too, but it has not, none of those three teams look tough. They don't look Big 12 tough. I'll say that. And that's where you're going to lose games that maybe you shouldn't even be losing. And that's what you got to worry about when you're one of those teams. Like you said, you can mess around and fall into a 3-game losing streak, and they might not be against ranked teams. And you might say, oh, well, 2 of them were on the road. And you can make all the excuses you want. But if you're not tough enough in this league to take on those back end or the bottom half teams night in, night out, then you probably don't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. And I think 2 of those 3, I think BYU and Baylor will make it, but I'm not saying that. But if you can't do that consistently, then you're not getting very far.
Was John Jacobs the coach that would show old clips of Locked On Baylor to Flo Thamba? That's what I wonder, if they lost their Locked On Baylor guy. Did they lose their spark? Because
did they know that you've moved? That they can still find you?
The old days, it would just be Flo Thamba sitting pregame, eyes closed, listening to the Locked On Baylor in his headphones, getting fired up for the game, and then
Jacobs is a fan, by the way. Jacobs is basically more or less said, "I know ball." On the air, on the Matt Mosley show on ESPN Central Texas.
Yeah, maybe it was Jacobs, maybe it was Tang. Somebody had the show in Flo Thamba's ears just so Flo Thamba could block a shot into the 4th row and then double dribble off his foot the very next possession and not score a single point for 4 straight games. Before we close it out, Cincinnati, Kansas State.
Remember when he went a game without a rebound?
Yes, or one board.
That was wild.
Anyway, playing 27 minutes as the starting big man down low. Florentine Thamba. Florentine Thamba. Cincinnati and Kansas State are 2 that stand out as, hey, these guys should be good. And then, oh, no.
Yeah.
This guy stinks. I don't know what's happening there, man, but that's bad.
Yeah, Cincinnati is the one that's more surprising to me, because I just thought they had the personnel to be better than this. Like, everyone hyped up Jizzle James and Bandego, and obviously Skillings, I think, is their best player. Kansas State, looking back on it, we almost probably should have seen the writing on the wall, but I think we were all hooked in by Coleman Hawkins, which Coleman Hawkins should be a tremendous player. He should be elevating that team to higher than what it is. But that is a mess right now. And I don't think they have the money to buy out Tang. That's what everyone's been telling me in my comment section when I'm like, Tang's going to get fired and come back to Baylor. They don't. It's apparently an $18 million buyout for a basketball coach. That's bad deal, Manhattan, man. That's bad. They're going to have to find some cause because the president doesn't like him.
Is Jerome Tang so Baylor Bears?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Strike up another documentary. It's going to lose you a lot of money. Strike it up. Make a new documentary.
Get some licensing. He will come back to Baylor. They'll win another national championship with him as an assistant, and he'll get another good head coaching job, and he'll succeed in it. The old Bill Belichick route.
Yeah, he'll take Scott Drew's job maybe. When Scott goes to Kentucky or Indiana or Duke or any of the above. That's Cameron Stewart at Real Cam Stewart on the social media thing that he does. This has been, it always will be, Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Squad Show comes out tonight. Dose Grande.